Yes, Cory.
What kind of music do mummies like to listen to?
I don't know, Cory. What kind of music do mummies like to listen to?
Rap music.
All right, here we go. Creative insurgents. Creative insurgents.
Hey, everybody. This is Corey Huff with TheAbundantArtist.com.
And Melissa Dinwiddie with Living a Creative Life.
And this is the Creative Insurgents Podcast,
where we are all about living a creative life according to your own rules.
Yay! So, Melissa, I spent the weekend in Birmingham, United Kingdom. It was really
Birmingham?
cool.
I went to school in Birmingham.
Really?
I did. I got a master's degree in Birmingham, England.
Nice. I was there for the UK Podcasters Convention, and I saw the world's coolest library.
Really?
Yeah, it was without a doubt one of the neatest libraries I've ever seen. Right up there with the Seattle Library and the Salt Lake City Library. Just really neat libraries.
What was so cool about it?
The architecture, the exterior looks like it so Birmingham is it came up as an industrial city, and so the exterior of the building looks like an old smokestack, but just the coolest take on that, artistic take on that you could have. It's really neat, and I was really excited to see it. And there's pictures all over my Facebook page if you follow me on Facebook, and I'll post some on the Abundant Artist Facebook page as well.
Cool. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I don't remember the library from when I lived there, probably from after I left.
So, Melissa, you've got a course coming up.
I do. Starting on September 1st, I'm running my program Get Sparked, which is a 30-day program to help people establish a consistent, sustainable, nourishing creative practice. And you know, we all have this great intention to get to our creative work, but so many things get in the way. So this program is really to help people establish that habit with a community of support. And there are daily prompts that go out and group phone calls, and it's always been a ton of fun when I've run this program. So I'm really excited about it.
I'm excited too. I think from what I've seen with other people who've taken your course before, it's done a really good job of helping people sort of get over some of their own blocks and get unstuck in a creative way.
Yes, it is always kind of magical to me how taking a group of people, creating the safe, warm space for them to get together and taking them through a journey together, just how much transformation happens. It's always really kind of magical, as I said.
Cool. And where can people find out about the course again?
They can go to my website, melissadinwiddie.com, and they can go straight to melissadinwiddie.com/get-sparked.
Nice. So I think we should jump right into today's interview with Stan and Renee.
Let's do it.
Stan and Renee, thank you very much for being here. We're so excited to talk to you and have you on the show.
Thank you for being.
Thank you. We're looking forward to chatting with you guys.
Yeah, awesome. So, Stan, I talked a little bit before about how I met you, but tell us a little bit how you conceived of the idea for the shows that you do with emerging artists.
I'm very good friends with an artist named Tony Fitzpatrick, and we both came up with this idea while driving to LA. We talked about the opportunity to give artists a show in Chicago without the rigmarole of the gallery experience that they've previously had. And what we had envisioned was some way in which we could have artists have shows and they would be able to keep all of the money from their sales and not take a commission. And then how could we make this work financially? And as we slowly evolved the idea, it fell to us to find sponsors or collectors to help us with the gallery to help support just the minimal costs to keep it going. And in some ways, they would have the opportunity to see new artists and experience their work in a gallery setting rather than some odd group show somewhere or a art fair or whatever. And it slowly evolved into this experience that we're offering now to get artists and collectors and to the general community.
I love it. And how many of these shows have you done now?
We're probably up into almost the low 50s now.
Wow.
That's a good number. That's a good number of shows.
Over 4 years.
Over a 4-year period. So you're really cranking them out.
We do a show a month, and I like that immediacy of having that experience because it changes the whole environment of the space. Each show is radically different from the next, and it is that personal statement by the artist. And the fact that I have some curatorial help for them, but basically it's the artist's vision for that space that we're endorsing for that month. And so we'll go from photography to large paintings to small paper to installations to all over the place, and it's been great.
Stan, what kind of sponsors do you get in order to fund the shows?
Well, we've had a hot dog stand sponsor a show. We've had different small companies that have sponsored shows where the owner of the place just wants to help the community, help the arts. Then we've had other ones that have been collectors who like the work, want to help this artist. And what they don't expect and what the artist doesn't expect is they slowly develop a relationship with each other to where the artist is appreciative and starts to be comfortable enough to talk to this person who is sponsoring their show. And the sponsor, rather than just, here's some money and have a great show and I'll talk to you later, all of a sudden the artist is a person who has all sorts of feelings and thoughts and creative ideas and is willing to share them with them. And all of a sudden they have this relationship.
Yeah, I really like that. So a question for both of you. What was it like, Renee, what was it like leading up to your first solo show? And Stan, how does an artist prepare for their first solo show in a situation like this? So Renee, I'd love to hear from you about what that experience was like leading up.
Well, sure. Well, I was super excited to have been offered a show at Firecat. I was working on a body of work called the Daily Drawing Series, where I committed to myself to make a painting a day. And in order to sort of bring some continuity to the series, I kind of approached the daily drawings as a weekly series. So at the beginning of each week, I would come up with a color palette or a subject or a format for the group of drawings. And when I was working on those, that's when Stan and I started to talk about me doing a show at Firecat Projects. And
so, hold on just a second there, because I want to pull something out there that I think a lot of artists who maybe haven't gone pro yet are not going to realize about what you're saying here. And Melissa, you and I have talked about this a few times. The idea of working in a series and working towards a goal. How does that differ for you, or how was that different for you?
Well, yeah. When I was sort of developing that project or got the idea to do that project, I was sort of coming from a place of, I was a little bit unhappy with my work creatively. I wanted something to sort of change, and I didn't have any sort of big deadlines in my future in terms of shows. And so I decided to create my own deadlines. I'm going to create a weekly series, focus on a subject or an idea, and develop that in a quick time period, with a day, within a week, and then they all developed into a yearly series. But I think it was a really good project for me. I don't think I had thought a lot about, I'd done shows before, but I hadn't done them in that sort of way where I was doing it really quickly, trying to kind of think about variations of a series and create a cohesive body of work.
And I think from my standpoint, I give a long lead time for artists. Renee knew about her show a year and a half beforehand. And so I work I'm in the middle of 2016 now. And so I work on a long lead time. They know this is their show. They have a month. Think about how you want to approach your work. Give it that full thought of the space. And I generally work with artists who are in mid-career, whatever that age is, but mid-career, to where I've done all the group shows. I've done all the invitational shows. I've done all this. I've reached a plateau, and now I'm stuck. And how do I move that ball up the hill one more time? And so to give them a 1.5 year lead time gives them thought to, where do I want to take my career? And how do I best want to go forward? And I work with them on that during that time.
And I had actually an even longer time.
Yeah.
I think it was almost 2.5 years from when we first started talking about. I didn't have we started talking about it, and then the date kind of came later. But you know, about 2.5 years, I had to sort of think about and consider, you know, how I'm going to do the show, and what I'm going to create, and what I want it to be. And so there was kind of a lot of conversation between both of us throughout that time, in kind of developing. And a lot of momentum to kind of lead up to that point. So there was definitely plenty of time to make the work and to think about it.
One of the artists that I showed is a man named Cal Schenkel. And Cal had done all the record covers for Frank Zappa in the 60s and 70s. Nice. And he had not shown his work for 20 years.
Wow.
And he would do like record store appearances with his older stuff, but he was still a painter. He was still an artist. And it took me almost 3 years to convince him, let's do this. And it reawakened his life. Just the focus of thinking of doing the work, and then doing the work, coming to Chicago and having that experience, and realizing I'm not just a record cover designer. I've always been an artist, and now I can still, at 70, be an artist and start my career again.
I love it.
That's really where we're at on that.
I've got a good friend who's a huge Frank Zappa fan, so I'm going to have to tell him about this. So you spend a lot of time thinking about and preparing for this series, this specific show. Now, take us through the experience of, you know, when somebody walks into the show, or maybe even just leading up to the show, how did you decide what the experience was going to be for the show attendee from the time they found out about it until they walk in the door and they see it?
As we get closer to the show, I work with the artists more directly, and I have long conversations with them where many artists don't really address the idea of communicating verbally to the public. And I work with them on, let's think about, I'm coming to talk to you about your work. What are you going to say to me? You're at an opening, you have 5 minutes. Think about it, write it down, let's talk about it, let's work on it. You need to be able to be concise, entertaining, and inviting to the general public. And I work with them on developing those skills, which a lot of artists at some point, maybe they had it, maybe they forgot it, but they don't really work at it. And it's about a community. You're having people support you to have this show. You need to be able to give back to that community more than just your work. You need to give back some ideas of what your creative process is, who you are as a person. And so I work very hard on that with them. And some come further than others, and some take to it like, wow, I've always wanted to do this.
What's that like for you, Renee?
You know, it's just been a really wonderful experience to be able to sort of, you know, share my work on a platform, a well-known platform in Chicago. It was just, you know, I had spent, you know, almost like 3 years kind of developing that show. So to be able to share that in a concise way was just super exciting. And I got a lot of wonderful feedback from my artist friends in the community, which I think is such an important part of what Firecat is about, and also just what has become a super important part of my life, that I'm very involved in the arts community here in Chicago and attending my friends' openings. We also have formed groups where we meet once a month and we talk to each other about where we can ask questions and help each other with sort of business-related things. It's not sort of a critique group, but we have those kinds of conversations in our artist community, and what we can do together. We're stronger sort of in that way, and I think that's something that that doing the show at Firecat taught me, that I'm not, just a person on an island.
They see all the positives. Oh, I get to have a show. I get to keep all the sales, all that. And then when the opening comes, and I've worked with them, and I go, look, people are going to come. I'm going to introduce you to people. You're going to need to step up and have that conversation. And then they realize we've talked about pricing, and they go, and there's no gallery person to turn to and go, talk to him about price. I've told them, you're the owner of this shop. You're the owner here. If you want to sell it for less or not sell it or do whatever you want, you have to learn to make those deals on your feet, because it's your career.
Yeah, absolutely. Renee, would you consider, like, before you did this solo show, would you say that you were somebody who was comfortable talking to people about your art and about your concepts and ideas?
Yes, I would say so, but Firecat strengthened that and brought it up several levels. It really developed those.
Yeah, how did you grow to learn to be comfortable to articulate those ideas? That's something that a lot of early artists struggle with.
I think practice makes perfect. I find that I'm constantly sort of talking about my work, not even just not at an art gallery, but just in preparation for that show, and telling people about it, giving them a postcard and saying, this is my work, and just kind of, starting the more and more time. At first, it's sort of, you're nervous, but each time you do it, you become less nervous, and then all of a sudden it becomes second nature. Yeah, I'm talking about the thing that I'm most passionate about in my life. This is exciting, and if you love your work, that is going to radiate from you, and that's kind of
That's really what we try and instill in the artists, or have them revisit that idea, because a lot of times they, my work is my work. If they don't like it, they don't like it. Well, the world doesn't quite work that simply.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, Stan, that, I don't really think that art necessarily speaks for itself. It should, but I definitely feel it's the job of the artist to try to verbalize those ideas, whether it's intent or process or color or some way for your audience and other people to kind of connect with your work. I think that is sort of your job.
And it's also, the viewers, some viewers can see that passion in the work.
The people who come to the shows, if they're not regular art collectors, what do you find to be their biggest problems or questions around looking at the art and potentially buying art?
A lot of times they just don't have the idea of why. Where is this coming from? Am I missing something? It's beautifully done, the colors are great, but why did you create this? Mm-hmm. And that artist stepping in and being able to tell their story. I'm just a normal person like you, but I have this passion to be able to tell this story in a visual way rather than a verbal way or on paper or whatever. And to be able to do that and have the viewer walk into that world and share that world with the artist, that's invaluable. It's just right.
Yeah. Do any of you, and maybe Melissa, do any of you have a specific experience that you can share where sharing the story or the why behind the art helped somebody connect enough to it to go ahead and make a purchase?
Absolutely, Cory. That's like almost every piece I've ever sold. Certainly the pieces that I've sold in person. I remember one show in particular stands out for me. It was right before 9/11. And so 9/11 hadn't happened yet. It was like the day before. And somebody came and was interested in a piece that I had made that had calligraphy on it, and it was the words of a poem that had music set to it that is sung frequently in synagogues. And I told this woman how meaningful these words were to me, and then I sang the song for her. And she was really struck by it. She did not buy it then, but then the day after 9/11, she called me up and she said, I am holding on to the words that you sang of that song, so meaningful to me, I need to buy that piece. And she came over and paid me and bought the piece.
We had an artist that drew plans for building things, and they were all blueprint type on Mylar. And they were for mechanical trees and for weapons of mass destruction and things like that. They were all fictitious, but it took a while for people to go, what exactly is going on here? But as they looked closer, they saw the humor that was there. And like in his weapons of mass destruction, in the nose cone, there was a place to put a little scroll, and you could check off reasons why we're destroying you, oil or religion. And it just, this is all in this massive blueprint of, and the trees rotated towards the sun, the leaves were photo, cells, and all of this, and the water moved up and down on a mechanical system. It just readily not accessible as people thought of as art. And then once they sort of, okay, now I get it. And then they got the humor, which was even better. So it works. It just takes, sometimes, people need the training wheels and the handrails, but they get there, it just.
I think that kind of helps bridge that emotional connection, because I feel like a lot of people, when they want to take something and bring it into their house, that just kind of bridging that emotional connection, that there's like a response.
And you are asking a lot for people to spend some money, put something in the place where they live, and they're going to see it every day. You want to make sure that there is that connection of full understanding and endorsement in some ways equally. And I think that's really where we're trying to have that conversation with both the viewer and collector with the artist.
Yeah, so I want to hear how far away, like how that has changed your last year and a half. And I also want to hear from both of you your top 3 to 5 suggestions on how an artist can prepare for a solo show. So Renee, how's that solo show influenced your career up to now?
Well, it's been a really wonderful year and a half. Since my show at Firecat, I've been in 14 group shows. I've done 4 solo exhibits and 1 two-person coming up. So I've been super busy. Some of the people that I met at Firecat Projects, even one of the people that bought one of the works at the exhibit, was a curator, and we did a show together this past April. So some of those relationships that I developed led to other shows as well, and people that have seen it. And I'm still sort of developing some of the series that I started on when I did my show at Firecat. So I'm making a lot of work, showing a lot, and feeling very kind of grateful for those experiences.
Part of what Firecat does also is we have other galleries show at Firecat from out of state. I've had galleries from Maine and New Orleans and Austin show there, so that the director comes and the artists that have shown with me here have that interaction with those gallery directors, and then they can establish some future context to having a show. So, or at least exposure with that gallery.
Renee, so you had the show and you've had a lot of follow-up shows. How have things been financially for you?
You know, it's been, you know, my Firecat show was very successful, and I've been continuing to sort of make sales. Some of the collectors that bought stuff at the Firecat show have continued to support me. I did a project where I did a group of etchings. I've never made etchings before. I'm primarily a painter. And I sent out a mailing to all of the people on my mailing list. I had a lot more people after the show, and I asked my collectors to subscribe or to buy in advance to help me sort of raise the money to make those etchings. And so I offered the work through subscription, so the collectors sort of had to take a leap of faith that I was going to make something that they were going to like to do this new media. So I sent that out, and you know, I got some people subscribing that helped me pay for the materials and the studio time to create that, to do that project. So it's been really great. I feel very grateful to be able to make and create work and be engaged with my artwork.
Awesome. So as we wrap up, your top 1 or 2 suggestions from each of you on how to prepare for and execute a really great solo show.
It's a balance. You know, you need to have the forethought of where you are with what you're doing. Spend the time to commit to make that work, but also realize for all that you're making work, you need to be able to put that same energy into expressing it in an interpersonal way as well, and to work on both ends of it. It's just not making work, it's also making yourself available to express what you're doing.
Yeah.
Those would be the 2 things to concentrate on.
Renee, anything to add?
Yeah, I'd like to add, you know, in addition to sort of being, you know, making work that you really care about and that you really, you know, believe in, you also need to put a lot of energy into thinking about where you're going to show and how you market your work. And that's sort of a creative outlet as well, to really kind of put time aside for that and consider how you're going to move forward and market your work in addition to making it.
I still have people who have shown with me years later. We still have conversations, and they're asking me, what should I do about this, and how should I approach that? And that's great. It's like they left school and have gone on, and it's great. I love it, you know. And it's an endorsement that little period of a month at our gallery gave them that step up to further explore possibilities that they hadn't thought of before. And that's what it's about. And
Stan's such a great mentor. It was, you know, in addition to my show, we talk all the time, and he's constant, you know, he's wonderful, a wonderful friend, and also mentor of my work. So I'm very happy to.
Yeah, and it gives me pleasure to see them succeed. And that's the difference with, you know, the gallery system as it is. You know, galleries want to hold that on and keep you locked in a little bit so that they can, you know, produce a, you know, revenue. But for me, it's, you know, you've graduated, you've gone on, call me anytime, I'll help. But, you know, this has been, you know, the experience, and I want to further that with other people.
Cool. So. Well, Renee, Stan, thank you so much. Melissa, do you have any other questions?
Stan, I'm just really curious, on your end of things, is the sponsorships, is that what pays your rent?
Yes, and I have 3 people who have stepped up over the last year to want to be board of directors. And so
cool.
With that, they have made a financial commitment to help further it beyond 2016, which is always nice to have that.
I think this is
financial support.
This is such an interesting model because it's so different from sort of the traditional gallery system, and it just makes a lot of sense to me that this would be something that would emerge in lots of places.
Yeah, I would love to see it in more places.
They also, when people come in, they don't feel like, he's here to try and push art on me. He wants to sell me something. I'm here to give you an experience of, discovery. I'm not here to, now I want you to buy this and I'll make a deal for you. I'm here just to provide that platform for you to discover something that you may not have seen before.
Yeah, cool.
That's a great model.
Well, I think those sirens mean we have to end.
Welcome to Chicago.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Stan and Renee. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, you guys.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Take
This
care.
was really fun to talk to you.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, Cory, that was such a cool interview. I just loved hearing about that new kind of model for a gallery. I hadn't heard of that kind of model before.
Yeah, I really hope that catches on.
I do too.
So if you're listening to this episode and you liked that interview with Stan and Renee, do us a favor and go find the Creative Insurgents podcast on iTunes. If you don't know how to find it on iTunes, you can go to creativeinsurgents.com, and there's a big link on the right-hand side. Click that link and leave us a review on iTunes, and we'd love it if you left us a 5-star review, because that's how iTunes determines whether or not our podcast shows up on the homepage.
That's right, and you can also subscribe to the audio or the video of the show automatically on iTunes.
And every time we see a new review, we'll try to grab at least one person's review and leave you a little and give you a little shout out on the air. Like today, Teresa Lalonde said, "Your interviews are informative and useful. I love hearing the motivations and inspirations from all the different types of artists and creators you connect with. My favorite seems to always be the last one I heard. I really enjoyed the podcast with Stephen Goldsmith." Oh my gosh, that was a good one. His ideas about the crisis of imagination I brought to my middle school classroom. The kids have it all figured out now. Perfect. Your inspiration and honest enthusiasm is infectious. Thanks. Thank you, Teresa. We really appreciate the kind words.
Yes, thank you, Teresa, and thank you again, everybody, for joining us today.
You bet. Have a good day, everybody.
Bye.